Ever since I could remember, I had a fascination with old things, antique shops, vintage books, relics of a time I never knew. My friends often joked that I was born in the wrong era, my soul lingering somewhere in the dusty corners of the past. It was this fascination that led me to the peculiar little shop nestled between the modern facades of the city's bustling streets, a place that seemed to whisper of secrets and stories untold. The shop, Curio's Keep, was cluttered with items that each carried their own weight of history. The air was thick with the scent of aged paper and rust, a testament to the many lives these objects had touched. It was here, among the labyrinth of forgotten treasures, that I found it, a small, ornate box made of dark wood, intricately carved with symbols I couldn't recognize. The shopkeeper, a frail old man with eyes that seemed to hold centuries of wisdom, told me it was a puzzle box, a relic from a time and place he couldn't quite remember. He spoke of it with a reverence that piqued my curiosity even further. "It's not just a box," he said, his voice lowering to a whisper. "It's a gateway to stories untold, to lives unlived. But be warned, not all stories are meant to be uncovered." I couldn't resist. The allure of the unknown, the thrill of possibly uncovering a piece of history, was too tempting. I purchased the box without a second thought, eager to explore its mysteries. That night, in the quiet solitude of my apartment, I sat down with the puzzle box, turning it over in my hands, examining the intricate carvings. The symbols seemed to dance under my fingertips, almost as if they were alive. With a mixture of excitement and apprehension, I began to solve the puzzle, each movement a step deeper into the unknown. After what felt like hours, a final click echoed through the room as the box sprang open, revealing its contents, a small, ancient-looking reel of film. No note, no explanation, just the reel, its presence almost mocking in its silence. Driven by an insatiable curiosity, I dusted off an old projector I had lying around, a remnant of my incessant need to collect antiquities. I set up the film, the projector's light cutting through the darkness of the room, casting shadows that seemed to quiver with anticipation. The film was grainy, jumping at times, but what it showed was unmistakably real. It wasn't a movie, but a collection of clips, disjointed yet eerily connected. Scenes of empty landscapes, abandoned buildings, and cryptic symbols filled the screen, each frame infused with an unsettling aura that made my skin crawl. As the film neared its end, a figure appeared on the screen, shrouded in shadows, its movements unnatural, disjointed. The figure seemed to stare right at me, its eyes piercing through the veil of time and space. And then, with a suddenness that left me gasping, the film ended, plunging the room back into darkness. The silence that followed was oppressive, heavy with a sense of foreboding I couldn't shake. I tried to convince myself it was just a film, a relic of the past with no bearing on the present. But the unease lingered, a whisper in the back of my mind that refused to be silenced. That night I found no rest. Every creak of the apartment, every shadow cast by the moonlight felt like a harbinger of something sinister. And when the phone rang, cutting through the silence of the early morning hours, my heart stopped. I answered, my voice barely a whisper, only to be met with silence. Not the silence of an empty line, but a heavy, suffocating silence that seemed to press against my ears. And then, a voice, distorted and barely human, spoke two words that chilled me to the bone. 7 days. The line went dead, leaving me in a silence far more terrifying than any sound. In that moment, I knew the film was more than just a forgotten relic. It was a curse, a gateway to a horror I had unwittingly unleashed. And so began my ordeal. a descent into a nightmare from which there seemed to be no escape. The morning after the film's haunting projection and the chilling phone call, I awoke enveloped in a cold sweat, the remnants of nightmares clinging to my consciousness. The sun's rays, usually a beacon of hope, now seemed to mock my despair, highlighting the absurdity of my fear. How could a simple film, a relic from the past, cast such a long shadow over my reality? I spent the day in a haze, my mind a tumultuous sea of doubt and dread. The words 7 days echoed in my mind, a relentless countdown that fueled my anxiety. In a desperate attempt to find answers, I returned to Curios Keep. But the shop was gone, replaced overnight by an empty storefront, its windows covered in layers of dust and grime. The old shopkeeper, the only link to the puzzle box and its film, had vanished without a trace. Feeling isolated and increasingly paranoid, I turned to the internet, diving into forums and obscure websites, searching for any clue that might explain the film and its curse. Hours turned into days as I scoured ancient texts and digital archives, my search uncovering tales of cursed objects and haunted films, stories that spanned cultures and centuries, each tale more disturbing than the last. Yet none matched the specifics of my experience, leaving me drowning in a sea of folklore with no lifeline in sight. It was on the third day, amidst my frantic research, that I experienced the first of the visions. I was walking through the city, the sounds and sights of life around me feeling distant, as if I were observing the world through a thick fogged glass. Suddenly, the bustling street faded into a desolate landscape, mirroring the scenes from the film. Buildings crumbled into ruins, and the sky turned a sickly shade of gray. In the distance, the shadowy figure from the film appeared, its movements erratic, as if it were a puppet being jerked by unseen strings. Just as quickly as it had appeared, the vision dissipated, leaving me standing in the middle of the street, heart racing as the world returned to its mundane rhythm. The visions grew more frequent and intense, each episode pulling me further from reality, blurring the lines between the tangible and the ethereal. I began to see symbols from the film etched into the world around me, in the cracks of the sidewalk, in the patterns of the leaves, whispers of a language I couldn't understand but felt compelled to decipher. By the 5th day, my apartment no longer felt like a sanctuary, but a prison. Shadows danced in the corners of my vision, and the air was thick with an oppressive atmosphere that made it hard to breathe. I was trapped in a waking nightmare, the boundary between sleep and wakefulness indistinguishable. In my desperation, I reached out to a friend, someone grounded in logic and skepticism, hoping they could offer a rational explanation or, at the very least, provide a momentary escape from my torment. But when I tried to show them the film, the projector malfunctioned, spitting sparks and smoke, as if the curse itself was determined to isolate me further. The realization hit me then with the force of a physical blow. I was alone in this. The curse, whatever ancient malice it bore, was mine to bear. The film had chosen me, or perhaps I had chosen it, lured by my own curiosity into a web from which there was no escape. As the 7th day approached, a heavy resignation settled over me. I understood now that the film was not just a collection of images, but a vessel for something older, deeper, and infinitely more malevolent. It was a test, a judgment passed by forces beyond my comprehension, and I had failed. With nowhere left to turn, I decided to confront my fate, head on. On the eve of the 7th day, I set up the projector once more, the reel of film poised to play its final act. I would watch it again, hoping to find some clue, some key to my salvation hidden within its cryptic frames. As the film began to play, the familiar scenes unfolding with a macabre sense of déjà vu, I steeled myself for the end, whatever form it might take. The air grew colder, the shadows deeper, and I knew that whatever was coming for me from the depths of the film's curse was close at hand. But as the final scene approached, the one that had heralded my doom, I realized the truth. The film was not a curse, but a warning, and the figure in the shadows, the source of my terror, was not a harbinger of death, but a guardian, trying to communicate through the only medium it could. In that moment of clarity, as the film reached its climax, I understood the message, the purpose behind the curse. It was a test, not of strength or will, but of understanding and empathy, a lesson delivered across the chasm of time and space. The room brightened as the film ended, the oppressive atmosphere lifting like a fog at sunrise. The visions ceased, the symbols faded, and for the first time in days, I felt a sense of peace. The curse was broken, not by solving the puzzle of the box or deciphering the film's images, but by understanding the message it carried. I had been chosen, not as a victim, but as a messenger, tasked with bearing witness to a truth that transcended time, a reminder that some stories, no matter how old or forgotten, demand to be remembered. As dawn broke on the seventh day, I emerged from my ordeal changed. The fear and isolation I had experienced were replaced by a profound sense of connection to the countless stories and lives that had come before me, a tapestry of human experience woven from the threads of joy, sorrow, fear, and hope. The puzzle box, now just an empty vessel, sat quietly on my shelf, a reminder of the journey I had undertaken and the lessons I had learned. And as I moved forward with my life, I carried with me the knowledge that we are all, in some way, connected by the stories we share, the fears we face, and the truths we uncover. And somewhere, in the vast, unknowable expanse of time and space, I knew the figure from the film watched over me, a silent guardian bound by a story that had found its voice once more. In the aftermath of the film's final revelation and the lifting of the curse, my life gradually returned to a semblance of normalcy. Yet the world around me felt altered, as if the very fabric of reality had been subtly rewoven. The experience had imbued me with a newfound sensitivity to the stories etched into the everyday, the hidden narratives of the people and objects I encountered daily. This sensitivity, however, came with a price, a lingering connection to the ethereal realm that had so violently intruded upon my existence. As days melded into weeks, I found myself drawn to other cursed objects, relics that whispered of forgotten lore and hidden truths. It was as if the puzzle box had unlocked a door within me, revealing a path I felt compelled to follow. My journey led me to collectors of the occult, libraries of arcane knowledge, and places steeped in supernatural history. Each step on this path offered insights into the nature of curses and the entities bound to them, but also plunged me deeper into a world where the line between reality and myth was increasingly blurred. One evening, as autumn's chill began to seep into the city, I received an invitation to an exhibition of cursed artifacts, hosted by a renowned collector known only as Merrick. The invitation was elegantly crafted, with an inscription that seemed to speak directly to my experiences. To those who have seen beyond the veil and returned with eyes wide open. The exhibition was held in an old mansion on the outskirts of the city, its architecture a blend of Gothic grandeur and decay. As I stepped through the towering front doors, I was greeted by an atmosphere thick with anticipation and the soft murmur of conversation. The guests were a diverse assembly, each bearing the mark of their own encounters with the supernatural. A haunted look in their eyes, a cautious step, a whispered word. Merrick, the host, was a figure of intrigue, his age indeterminate, his eyes alight with a curiosity that mirrored my own. He welcomed me with a knowing smile, as if we were old friends reunited by fate. "You've seen the film," he said, not a question but a statement. "Your journey has only just begun." The exhibition was a labyrinth of rooms, each housing artifacts that pulsed with malevolent energy. Merrick guided me through the collection, recounting tales of each object's origin and the curses they carried. Among the artifacts, one in particular caught my attention, a painting of a figure shrouded in shadows, its eyes obscured by a veil of darkness. The painting exuded a palpable sense of sorrow and rage, and I felt an inexplicable pull towards it. "This," Merrick said, noting my interest, "is the portrait of the Veiled Lady. She was a seer, condemned for her visions and bound to this painting as punishment. Her curse is one of eternal isolation, her only solace the hope that someone might one day free her." The story struck a chord within me, echoing the loneliness and desperation I had felt under the film's curse. Moved by a desire to help, I asked Merrick about the possibility of breaking the curse. His expression darkened, a shadow passing over his features. The Veiled Lady's curse is ancient and powerful, tied to her very essence. To attempt to break it is to risk becoming ensnared by it. But, he paused, studying my face, perhaps you, who have already walked the path of curses and emerged unscathed, might succeed where others have failed. The decision to attempt to break the Veiled Lady's curse was not one I made lightly. The risks were evident, the potential for disaster great. Yet, the empathy I felt for the Veiled Lady, a kinship forged in the fires of my own ordeal, compelled me to try. In the days that followed, I immersed myself in research, delving into ancient texts and consulting with experts in the field of supernatural curses. The solution, I discovered, lay not in magic or ritual, but in understanding. The same understanding that had freed me from the film's curse. Armed with this knowledge, I returned to the exhibition, to the portrait of the Veiled Lady. Standing before the painting, I spoke to her, not as one would to an object, but as one soul to another, sharing my own story of isolation and redemption, of the power of empathy and connection. As I spoke, the air around the painting began to shimmer, the atmosphere charged with a palpable energy. The Veiled Lady's eyes, once obscured by darkness, became visible, revealing a depth of sorrow and longing. And then, in a moment of transcendent clarity, the curse lifted, the painting transforming before my eyes. The Veiled Lady's visage softened, her eyes closing in peace as her spirit was finally released from its prison. The room fell silent, the guests and Merrick himself watching in awe as the Veiled Lady's curse was broken. In that moment, I realized the true nature of my journey. It was not just a quest for knowledge or power, but a mission to heal, to free those trapped by curses and by their own past. Merrick approached me, a look of respect and admiration in his eyes. "You have a rare gift," he said, "the ability to see beyond the curse, to the heart of the haunted. Your journey is far from over. There are many more like the Veiled Lady, waiting for someone like you to set them free." As I left the exhibition that night, the mansion fading into the darkness behind me, I felt a sense of purpose like never before. My experience with the film, with the puzzle box, had set me on this path, a path that led to the liberation of the Veiled Lady and would, I hoped, lead to the liberation of many more. The road ahead was uncertain, fraught with danger and the unknown. But I was no longer the same person who had opened that puzzle box all those weeks ago. I was a traveler on a journey through the shadowy realms of curses and redemption, armed with the knowledge that sometimes the greatest power lies not in magic or might, but in understanding and empathy. And so, with the Veiled Lady's portrait as a reminder of the lives I had touched and those yet to be saved, I stepped into the night, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, guided by the light of compassion and the strength of my conviction. In the weeks that followed the exhibition, my reputation as a breaker of curses grew. The once quiet life I led, filled with mundane routines, was now replaced by a series of encounters with the supernatural. People from all walks of life sought me out, each carrying their own tale of woe, of objects and places cursed with a darkness that consumed them. I listened to their stories, feeling the weight of their despair, and in each, I saw a reflection of my own journey, a quest for redemption and understanding in the face of unfathomable darkness. Among the many cases that came my way, one stood out, beckoning me with a sense of urgency that I couldn't ignore. It was a letter, aged and yellowed, its handwriting elegant but trembling with fear. The writer spoke of a house, an ancestral home that had been in their family for generations, now abandoned and shrouded in a darkness that was more than just the absence of light. It was a darkness that seeped into the soul, corrupting everything it touched. The family, once prosperous and happy, had been torn apart by tragedy and misfortune, each event seemingly linked to the house and its sinister presence. The writer, the last surviving member of the family, implored me to help, to break the curse that had claimed so many lives. Driven by a mix of compassion and curiosity, I set out for the house, located in a remote part of the countryside, its isolation adding to the ominous aura that surrounded it. As I approached, the air grew colder, the light dimmer, as if the very atmosphere was warning me away. The house stood before me. The windows, dark and empty, stared back like the eyes of a corpse, and the door, slightly ajar, seemed to beckon me into its depths. Stepping inside, I was immediately enveloped by a palpable sense of despair, the echoes of past sorrows whispering from the walls. The air was thick with the scent of decay, and as I moved through the house, I could feel the weight of the darkness bearing down on me, trying to crush my spirit. I explored the house, each room revealing more of the family's tragic history, their lives unraveled by the curse. And at the heart of it all was the library, a room that seemed untouched by time, its shelves filled with ancient tomes and manuscripts. It was here, amidst the musty pages and whispered secrets, that I found the origin of the curse, a pact made with a dark entity, a desperate bid for power that had turned sour, condemning the family to generations of suffering. The entity, bound to the house by the pact, was the source of the darkness, its presence a blight upon the land. Breaking the curse would require confronting this entity, a task that filled me with a dread unlike any I had felt before. But I knew I could not turn back, not when so many lives had been lost, and the last vestige of the family's hope rested upon my shoulders. Armed with the knowledge gleaned from the library, I prepared for the confrontation, using the ancient texts to craft a ritual that would sever the entity's connection to the house and banish the darkness. The ritual, complex and dangerous, demanded everything of me, my strength, my will, and a piece of my own soul. As the night deepened, I began the ritual in the heart of the house, the library's ancient walls bearing witness to my struggle. The entity, sensing its impending doom, lashed out, the house shaking with its rage, shadows twisting into forms both grotesque and pitiful, voices crying out in anguish. The battle was long and arduous, each step of the ritual met with resistance. Each word of power, a defiance against the darkness. But I stood firm, driven by the memories of those who had suffered, their voices lending me strength. And then, with a final, desperate effort, I completed the ritual. A blinding light filled the room, piercing the darkness, and the entity's scream, a sound of pure malice and despair, echoed through the house as it was torn from this realm. As the light faded, the house fell silent, the oppressive atmosphere lifting like a shadow at dawn. The darkness was gone, banished by the light of redemption and the strength of my conviction. In the days that followed, the house began to recover from the curse, the decay halting, the air clearing. The family's tragic history, once a chain of sorrow, was now a tale of liberation, a reminder of the power of courage in the face of darkness. The writer of the letter, upon hearing of the curse's breaking, returned to the house, their ancestral home now a place of peace rather than a prison of despair. They thanked me, their words a testament to the healing that had begun, not just for the house, but for the land and the family's legacy. As I left the house behind, its windows now bright with the promise of a new day, I reflected on my journey. With each curse I faced, each entity I banished, I was not just liberating others from their darkness, but also finding my own path through the shadows. A path that led ever onward, to the next story, the next challenge. And though the road was long and fraught with peril, I walked it with a heart full of hope, knowing that in the battle against darkness, the light of understanding and the strength of the human spirit were my most powerful allies. The liberation of the house and the breaking of its ancient curse marked a turning point in my journey. Word of my deeds spread, transcending the whispered circles of the occult and reaching the ears of those who had lost hope, those ensnared by curses of their own making or by the malice of others. My life, once defined by a solitary quest for knowledge, had become a beacon for the afflicted, a guide through the darkness that threatened to consume them. Among the many pleas for help, one stood out, a case that would challenge me not just as a breaker of curses, but as a seeker of truths hidden deep within the human soul. It was a letter from a small coastal town, plagued by a curse so potent that it had turned the sea itself into a prison, its waters a barrier no one could cross, a mirror reflecting the town's despair. The town, once vibrant and full of life, had become a shadow of its former self, its people trapped by an invisible force that fed on their fears and turned their dreams into nightmares. The source of this curse was a mystery, a tale of loss and betrayal so intertwined with the town's history that unraveling it seemed impossible. Driven by a sense of duty and the challenge it presented, I made my way to the town, the sea's restless murmurs a somber greeting as I arrived. The townspeople, their faces etched with the weight of their imprisonment, watched me with a mix of skepticism and hope, their eyes telling stories of countless attempts to break the curse, all ending in failure. My investigation led me to the heart of the town's history, to a tragedy that had occurred generations ago, a shipwreck that had claimed the lives of many, including the town's founder. The tragedy had spawned a legend, that of a specter known as the Mourning Maiden, a figure said to walk the shores at night, her cries a lament for the lost and a warning to those who dared to leave. The connection between the Mourning Maiden and the curse was palpable, the specter a manifestation of the town's collective grief and guilt, bound to the sea by chains of sorrow too strong to break. To confront the Mourning Maiden and unravel the curse, I needed to understand the tragedy, to give voice to the silenced and reconciliation to the bereaved. My search for answers took me to the town's oldest residents, keepers of stories passed down through generations, each tale a piece of the puzzle. Through their words, I pieced together the story of the shipwreck, of a love lost to the sea, and of a vow broken, the roots of the curse buried in a heartache that time had failed to heal. Armed with this knowledge, I ventured to the shore at night, where the spectre of the Mourning Maiden was said to roam. The sea, under the moon's pale light, stretched before me, its waters a dark mirror reflecting the stars above, and there on the shore stood the Mourning Maiden, her figure shrouded in mist, her presence a chill in the air that whispered of endless sorrow. I approached her, not as an adversary but as an emissary of peace, my words a balm for the wounds that had festered for generations. I spoke of understanding and forgiveness, of the bonds of love and loss that united us all, mortal and spirit alike. The Mourning Maiden, her cries a lament that had echoed through the ages, listened, her sorrow a tide that ebbed as my words reached her, and in her eyes a glimmer of peace emerged, a release from the chains that had bound her to the shore, the curse lifting as her spirit found solace in the reconciliation of past wrongs. As dawn broke, the sea, once a barrier, welcomed the townspeople with open arms, its waters a path to the world beyond. No longer a mirror of their despair, but a canvas for their hopes and dreams. The town, freed from the curse, began to heal, its people no longer prisoners of the past, but architects of their future. My departure from the town was bittersweet, the gratitude of its people a warmth in my heart, their stories a reminder of the power of empathy and the healing that comes with understanding. The sea, once a symbol of their imprisonment, now sang a song of freedom, its waves a testament to the enduring strength of the human spirit. As I continued my journey, the sea's song a lingering echo, I knew that each curse I faced, each shadow I dispelled, was a step towards a greater understanding, not just of the supernatural but of the human condition. My path, lit by the stories of those I had helped, was a journey of redemption, a testament to the belief that even in the darkest of nights, the light of hope could never be extinguished. As I ventured further into the heart of darkness, confronting curses that spanned the breadth of human fear and sorrow, I became a custodian of lost stories, a bridge between the seen and the unseen. The journey was arduous, testing not just my resolve, but the very essence of my spirit. Yet, with each step, with each curse unraveled and soul freed, I found myself not diminished but strengthened, my purpose clearer than ever. The final chapter of my journey began with a letter, unlike any I had received before. It was not a plea for help, but an invitation, a call to return to where my journey had begun, the small, enigmatic shop where I had found the puzzle box, the shop that had vanished as mysteriously as it had appeared. Curiosity, mixed with a sense of destiny, drew me back to the city of my origins, to the alley where Curio's Keep had once stood. To my astonishment, the shop was there, as if it had never left, its windows displaying a myriad of objects, each with its own tale of mystery and magic. The bell above the door chimed as I entered, the familiar scent of aged paper and ancient wood enveloping me. The shopkeeper, his appearance unchanged by the passage of time, greeted me with a nod, a knowing smile on his lips. "You've returned," he said, his voice a blend of warmth and solemnity. "Your journey has come full circle." He led me to the back of the shop, to a table where the puzzle box sat, as enigmatic as the day I first laid eyes on it. But now it was open, its secrets laid bare for the world to see. "You've seen what lies beyond the veil," the shopkeeper continued, his gaze piercing into the depths of my soul. "You've touched the darkness and emerged into the light. But remember, the balance between the two is ever fragile, ever shifting. Your journey, while marked by endings, is also filled with beginnings." He handed me a key, old and ornate, its purpose unknown yet imbued with a sense of importance. "This key unlocks more than doors," he said. "It unlocks potential, the potential for change, for growth, and for understanding." As I took the key, a flood of memories washed over me, of the cursed objects I had encountered, the souls I had freed, and the darkness I had vanquished. I realized then that my journey was not just about breaking curses, but about restoring balance, about healing the wounds that spanned the chasm between light and darkness. With a heart heavy yet hopeful, I left Curio's keep, the key a weight in my pocket and a symbol of my responsibility. The city around me felt different, as if it too had been transformed by my journey. The people I passed, each engrossed in their own lives, were reminders of the stories yet to be told, of the curses yet to be broken. As I walked, the key began to warm in my hand, its warmth spreading through my body, a beacon of light guiding me towards my next destination. I knew not where it would lead, only that the path ahead was mine to forge. A path lined with shadows and light, with sorrow and joy. And so, with the setting sun casting long shadows behind me, I stepped forward into the unknown, the key to my future and the futures of those I would encounter. My journey, a tapestry woven from the threads of countless lives, continued, each step a testament to the enduring power of hope and the unbreakable bond of our shared humanity. In the end, I understood that the true curse was not the darkness that lurked in the hearts of men or the shadows that danced at the edge of sight. The true curse was forgetting, the forgetting of stories, of pain, of love, and of the lessons learned in the depths of despair. My role, my purpose, was to remember, to carry these stories within me, a guardian of the light that shines brightest in the darkest of times. And with this understanding, I embraced my destiny, not as a breaker of curses, but as a keeper of stories, a scribe of the unseen, writing the tales of those who walk in the shadows, guiding them back into the light. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a like and please subscribe. Your support will help us tremendously. Thank you.